They laughed when the veteran inherited just a cave, until his dog started digging and uncovered something fishmen were willing to burn everything to hide. Ryan Cole had already lost everything: his home, his job, and nearly his grip on reality. Haunted by war and pushed out into the cold, with nothing but his loyal German shepherd, Bruno, he thought life couldn't get any worse. Until a letter arrived. 5 acres in the mountains. A cave. A past he never understood. But the deeper he goes, the more it becomes clear. This wasn't an inheritance. It was a warning. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know who's here with us. The knock on the door came just after sunrise, sharp and impatient, like it had somewhere better to be. Ryan Cole didn't move at first. He lay on the worn-out couch, staring at the ceiling, where a crack ran like a fault line through the plaster. His body was still, but his mind wasn't. It hadn't been for months. The echo of distant gunfire still lived somewhere behind his eyes. The smell of dust and smoke clung to memories that refused to fade. Bruno lifted his head before Ryan did. The German shepherd had been lying beside the couch, one ear twitching at every small sound the building made. His amber eyes locked onto the door. A low, quiet growl rumbled in his chest. Not aggressive, just alert. "Yeah," Ryan muttered, his voice rough. "I hear it too." The knock came again, louder this time. Ryan pushed himself up, joints stiff, like he'd aged 20 years instead of 10 since leaving the service. His boots sat by the door, still dusty from a job site that had fired him 2 weeks ago, but he didn't bother putting them on. When he opened the door, the landlord didn't bother with a greeting. "You're out of time, Ryan. No good morning. No, how are you holding up? Just business." Ryan leaned against the frame, squinting in the morning light. "I told you I'd have it by the end of the week." "You said that last week." The man crossed his arms. "I gave you 2 extensions. I can't keep doing this." Behind Ryan, Bruno stood now, silent but watchful. He didn't bark. He never barked unless he had to. But his presence filled the small apartment like a second shadow. The landlord glanced past Ryan, noticing the dog. "You've got to clear everything out today." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Today?" "Today." There was no anger in the landlord's voice, just finality. Ryan nodded once, slow. "All right." The man hesitated for half a second, like he might say something else. Then he didn't. He just turned and walked down the hallway, footsteps fading into the building's tired silence. Ryan closed the door. For a long moment, he stood there, staring at the chipped paint, the dent where someone had slammed it too hard years ago. This place had never been much. Cheap walls, thin floors, neighbors who argued at night. But it had been something. Now it was nothing. Bruno stepped closer, pressing his head lightly against Ryan's side. Ryan exhaled slowly. "Guess it's just us again, huh?" The dog didn't move away. Packing didn't take long. There wasn't much to pack. A duffel bag, a few shirts, a pair of jeans, old military boots, a photograph he didn't look at anymore. He folded everything with mechanical precision, up the way he'd been trained. Order in small things, even when everything else was falling apart. Bruno watched him the whole time, tail still, eyes following every movement. By the time Ryan zipped the bag shut, the sun had climbed higher. Light spilled through the cracked blinds, cutting the room into sharp lines of gold and shadow. Ryan slung the bag over his shoulder. "This was never home anyway," he said, though the words didn't feel true. They stepped out into the hallway. No one said goodbye. Outside, the air was cold enough to bite. Ryan walked without direction at first, boots crunching over gravel in the parking lot. Bruno stayed close, always half a step behind, like he had back then, like nothing had changed. But everything had. Ryan hadn't been able to keep a job for more than a few weeks. Construction, warehouse, just security, it didn't matter. The noise, the pressure, the sudden moments that triggered something deep inside him. His hands would shake, his breath would tighten, and then it was over. Liability, they called it. Bruno had been the only reason it hadn't gotten worse. The dog had learned Ryan's patterns better than any doctor ever had. When the nightmares came, Bruno was there. When Ryan froze, trapped in a memory, Bruno nudged him back. More than once, the dog had pulled him out of moments he couldn't explain to anyone else. Ryan stopped walking when he reached the edge of town. The road stretched ahead, empty. "Not sure where we're going," he admitted quietly. Bruno sat beside him, calm, patient. Ryan gave a dry laugh. "Figures." They found a spot near an abandoned gas station to rest. Ryan sat on the curb, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing in particular. Cars passed occasionally, but no one stopped. Hours slipped by. At some point, exhaustion crept in, the kind that settled into your bones. Ryan leaned back against the cold concrete wall. Bruno lay beside him, head resting on his boot. For a brief moment, there was silence. No noise. No memories. Just stillness. Then footsteps approached. Ryan's eyes opened instantly. Bruno was already up, standing between Ryan and the stranger. A woman in a gray coat stopped a few feet away. She looked out of place here, clean, composed, like she belonged in an office somewhere, not next to a broken-down gas station. "Ryan Cole?" Ryan frowned. "Who's asking?" She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "My name is Elaine Brooks. I've been trying to reach you." Ryan didn't move. "Oh, I'm a probate attorney," she continued. "This concerns an inheritance." Ryan almost laughed. "You've got the wrong guy." "I don't think I do." She glanced at the paper. "Ryan Cole, age 35, former Army." That got his attention. Bruno's posture shifted slightly, still alert. Ryan stood slowly. "Inheritance from who?" The woman held out the envelope. "From your grandfather." The word hit harder than it should have. Ryan stared at her. "That's not possible." "It is." He didn't take the envelope right away. "My grandfather left a long time ago," Ryan said, his voice tightening. "Didn't leave anything behind." Elaine's expression didn't change. "He left something." Ryan looked down at Bruno for a second. The dog's ears were forward, eyes locked on the envelope. Finally, Ryan reached out and took it. So the paper felt heavier than it should have. He turned it over. His name was written across the front in faded ink. For a moment, something flickered in his chest. A memory. A smell of sawdust. A voice he couldn't quite hear anymore. Then it was gone. Ryan swallowed. "What is it?" Elaine met his eyes. 5 acres of land. He blinked. "Where?" "Wyoming." Ryan let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "Let me guess. It's nothing." Elaine hesitated. "It's remote. Rocky terrain. There's a cave on the property. No utilities. No developed structures." Ryan shook his head. "Figures." But Bruno stepped closer. The dog's nose brushed against the envelope. Then he looked up at Ryan, ears alert, body tense in a way Ryan hadn't seen before. Not fear. Something else. Something like recognition. Ryan frowned. "Oh, hey," he said softly. "What is it?" Bruno didn't answer, of course. But he didn't look away from the envelope either. And for the first time since that knock on the door, something shifted inside Ryan. Not hope. Not yet. But something close enough that he noticed. He looked back at Elaine. "All right," he said slowly. Tell me everything. Bruno sat beside him, still watching the envelope like it mattered more than anything else in the world. And Ryan had the strange, unsettling feeling that maybe it did. The wind picked up, brushing dust across the cracked pavement of the abandoned station. Somewhere far off, a truck rumbled past, but the sound felt distant, like it belonged to another world. Ryan looked down at the envelope again. 5 acres, he repeated quietly. With a cave. Elaine Brooks nodded. That's correct. He ran a hand over his face, tired, trying to process it. And you tracked me down, out here, for that? It's my job to ensure the property is transferred properly. She paused. And to inform you of any existing offers. Ryan's eyes lifted. Offers? Elaine reached into her bag again and pulled out another document. This one was clean, crisp, official. There's a company called Redstone Extraction. They've been attempting to acquire surrounding parcels in that area for several years. Your property is the last piece they don't own. Ryan took the paper slowly. How much? $10,000. Ryan stared at the number. 10,000. For a man with nothing in his pocket but a few crumpled bills, it might as well have been a lifeline. Rent. Food. Or maybe even a fresh start somewhere that didn't carry ghosts in every shadow. He let out a breath through his nose. And all I have to do is sign it over? Yes. They're prepared to close immediately. Ryan didn't answer right away. Bruno shifted beside him. The dog's attention was fixed, not on Elaine, not on the road, but on the map that had slipped halfway out of the envelope. His ears were up, his body tense. Ryan noticed. You okay, buddy? Bruno didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. Ryan pulled the map out fully. It was old, yellowed at the edges. A rough outline of land carved into mountains. A single marking near the center. A small hand-drawn symbol, almost like an entrance. A cave. Bruno stepped forward, his nose pressed to the paper. Then he let out a low, uneasy growl. Ryan frowned. Hey! The dog had never reacted like that to something so simple. Not paper, not ink. Elaine glanced at Bruno. He seems interested. That's one way to put it, Ryan muttered. He folded the map slowly, but Bruno's eyes followed every movement. Something wasn't right. Ryan looked back at Elaine. You said they've been trying to buy this land for years? Yes. And nobody's taken it? The trust held ownership until you turned 18. After that, well, it took time to locate you. Ryan let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I wasn't exactly easy to find. Elaine studied him for a moment. Mr. Cole, I understand your situation may not be ideal. This offer is a quick way out, Ryan finished for her. She didn't argue. The silence stretched. Ryan looked down at Bruno again. The dog had finally sat, but his posture was still rigid. Focused. Waiting. For what? Ryan shook his head slightly. This is stupid, he said under his breath. Elaine raised an eyebrow. What is? Ryan looked back at her. It's just land. Rocks, a cave, no water, no power, nothing. Correct. And they're offering 10 grand for it. Yes. Ryan's gaze sharpened. Why? Elaine hesitated. As I said, they own everything around it. It's likely just a logistical inconvenience, a gap in their development plans. Ryan didn't respond, because it didn't sit right. He'd seen enough in his life to recognize when something didn't add up. And this didn't. If it was truly worthless, why did they want it so badly? Bruno let out another low sound. Not quite a growl, more like a warning. Ryan looked down at him again. You really don't like this. Do you? The dog's eyes flicked between Ryan and the envelope. Ryan sighed. He looked back at the offer in his hand. $10,000. A warm bed. Food that didn't come from gas stations. Maybe even a chance to start over. All he had to do was sign. His fingers tightened slightly on the paper, then loosened. I need to see it. Elaine blinked. Excuse me? The land, Ryan said. I'm not selling something I've never even seen. She shook her head gently. Mr. Cole, it's extremely remote. Travel alone would cost you more than you can afford right now. And based on the reports, there's nothing there worth. I said I need to see it. His voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. The kind of tone that didn't ask for permission. Elaine studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. It's your property, she said. Your decision. She reached into her bag one last time and handed him a smaller envelope. Deed copies, coordinates, and a key. Ryan took it. A key? For a structure on the property. According to records, it's an old storage cabin, though I wouldn't expect much. Ryan slipped it into his pocket. Elaine stepped back. If you decide to accept the offer, you can contact me directly, but they are expecting an answer within a week. Ryan nodded once. Got it. She gave Bruno one last glance, then turned and walked away. Her car started a moment later, and then it was just Ryan and the dog again. Silence settled in. Ryan stared down at the map in his hands. Wyoming. Mountains. A cave. A grandfather he barely remembered and never understood. Bruno nudged his leg. Ryan looked down. The dog's expression hadn't changed. Oh, still alert, still focused, still waiting. For what? Ryan murmured. Bruno didn't answer, but he didn't look away from the direction of the mountains either. Ryan followed his gaze. There was nothing there, just distance, just open road. But for some reason, it didn't feel empty anymore. Ryan exhaled slowly. Well, he said, adjusting the strap of his duffel bag. Guess we're not done yet. Bruno stood immediately, tail low, ears forward, ready. Ryan gave a faint, tired smile. Yeah, I figured. He took one last look at the offer in his hand, then folded it and tucked it deep into his pocket. Let's go see what he left us. The road stretched ahead, long, quiet, unknown. But this time, Ryan didn't feel like he was walking away from something. It felt like he was walking toward it. And beside him, Bruno moved with quiet certainty, like he already knew what was waiting up there. Ryan didn't like that feeling. Not the part about the road, not the part about Wyoming, and definitely not the part where his dompo, his steady, predictable partner, was acting like he was following something only he could sense. They started walking before Ryan had a real plan. That wasn't new. The road out of town stretched long and empty, lined with dry grass and rusted fences that leaned like they'd given up years ago. The sky above was wide, pale blue, the kind that made a man feel small if he stared at it too long. Ryan kept his eyes forward. All right, he muttered. First step, get moving. Bruno padded beside him, silent as always. They caught a ride by mid-morning. An old pickup truck slowed beside them, an engine rattling like it might not survive another mile. The driver, a heavy-set man in his 60s with sunburned skin and a worn baseball cap, leaned across the passenger seat. You heading west? Ryan nodded. As far as you're going. The man glanced at Bruno. Dog-friendly? He's better behaved than I am. That earned a short laugh. All right then, Hop in. The truck smelled like oil and dust, the kind of smell that stuck in your clothes. Ryan didn't mind. It reminded him of simpler things, places where the rules were clear, where work meant something. They drove for hours. Fields turned into hills, hills stretched into open land. And all the while, Ryan's mind didn't stay where his body was. It drifted. The sound of the engine faded into something else, something sharper. A pop in the distance, then another. When Ryan blinked, the road in front of him flickered, replaced for half a second by something else. Sand, heat, smoke curling into the sky. His fingers tightened around his knee. Bruno shifted instantly. The dog pressed his side against Ryan's leg, firm and grounding. Ryan inhaled sharply. Not now, he muttered under his breath. The memory pushed harder. Voices shouting, a radio crackling, a flash. Bruno nudged him, harder this time. Ryan's head snapped slightly to the side, breaking the moment. The truck came back into focus. The road, the driver, the slow hum of tires. He exhaled, long and shaky. Easy, he whispered, more to himself than the dog. Bruno stayed pressed against him until Ryan's breathing evened out. The driver glanced over briefly. Didn't ask questions, just nodded once, like he'd seen something like that before. Wyoming's a long way, the man said after a while. Ryan nodded. Yeah. What's out there for you? Ryan hesitated, then shrugged. Not sure yet. The man smiled faintly. Sometimes that's the only reason worth going. They got dropped off at a small junction where the road split into two-lane highways that stretched toward mountains barely visible on the horizon. Ryan adjusted his bag. Appreciate it. The man tipped his hat. Take care of that dog. Ryan glanced down at Bruno. He's the one taking care of me. The truck pulled away, leaving them alone again. Wind moved through the open land, carrying the faint scent of pine from somewhere far off. Ryan looked ahead. Mountains, still distant, still unreal. They walked until sunset, but by the time the sky turned orange and purple, they found a place to rest near a patch of trees just off the road. Ryan built a small fire using dry branches, hands moving automatically, muscle memory from a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. Bruno lay close by, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the firelight. Ryan stared into the flames. It had been years since he'd thought about his grandfather. Not really, just fragments. A deep voice, rough hands, the smell of wood. And then, nothing. Gone. No explanations. No goodbye. Just stories from his parents about a man who walked away and never looked back. Ryan had believed it. What else was there to believe? He picked up a small stick and nudged the fire. If he left something behind, he said quietly, why didn't he stay? The fire crackled, which Bruno's ears twitched. Ryan shook his head. Doesn't matter. But it did. More than he wanted to admit. That night, the cold settled in hard. Ryan lay back against his bag, staring up at the sky. The stars were clearer out here, sharper, like someone had taken the time to polish them. Sleep didn't come easy. It never did. When it finally did, it didn't last. The dream hit fast. Darkness, heat, a sound like thunder. Ryan jolted awake, breath sharp, heart hammering. For a second, he didn't know where he was. Then Bruno was there. A warm weight against his chest, a steady presence. Ryan grabbed onto the dog's fur, grounding himself. I'm here, he whispered. I'm here. Bruno stayed still, letting him hold on. Minutes passed before Ryan's breathing slowed. He leaned his head back, eyes closing again, but this time not asleep, just resting. Morning came cold and quiet. Ryan packed up without speaking much. The road was waiting, always waiting. They walked again, hitchhiked again. Day after day, the land changed. Flat fields gave way to rolling hills. The air grew thinner, sharper. Pine trees replaced dry brush. The smell of earth deepened. By the third day, the mountains weren't distant anymore. They rose ahead, massive and unmoving, their peaks cutting into the sky like something ancient. Ryan stopped at the edge of a small overlook. "Guess that's it," he said. Bruno stood beside him. The dog's posture shifted again, more alert, more focused, like he recognized this place. Ryan narrowed his eyes. "You've never been here." Bruno didn't react, but his gaze stayed locked on the mountain ridge. Ryan followed it. But there was something unsettling about it. Not danger, not exactly, but something waiting. Ryan exhaled slowly. "All right," he said. "Let's find out." The road narrowed as they moved closer, turning into gravel, then dirt. Eventually, it disappeared altogether. All that remained was a faint trail leading into the trees. Ryan stepped onto it. The forest swallowed the sound of the outside world almost immediately. No cars, no voices. Just wind in the branches and the soft crunch of boots on dirt. Bruno moved ahead slightly now, no longer at Ryan's side. Leading. Ryan watched him. "You really think it's this way?" Bruno didn't look back. He just kept going, and Ryan followed. Because for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel lost. Not completely. Not anymore. Well, the trail narrowed as Ryan moved deeper into the trees, the light thinning above him. Pine branches stretched overhead, their shadows long and shifting, turning the forest into something quieter, something watchful. Every step felt heavier, not because of the climb, but because of the silence. Bruno slowed, his ears twitching, nose lifting slightly as if catching something on the wind. Ryan noticed. "What is it?" The dog didn't answer, of course. He just stood still for a moment, then continued forward, more cautious now. Ryan followed. The deeper they went, the less the forest felt empty. It was a strange feeling. Not danger. Not yet. But presence. After nearly an hour, the trees began to thin. A clearing opened ahead. Ryan stepped out of the shadows and stopped. There was a cabin. Small, weathered, but leaning slightly to one side like it had been holding its breath for years. The wood was darkened by time, the roof patched in places with mismatched boards. A narrow chimney rose crookedly from one side. No smoke, no movement. Just stillness. Ryan let out a slow breath. "Well, guess that's something." Bruno didn't share the relief. The dog stood stiff beside him, eyes locked on the cabin. Then, slowly, he shifted his gaze to the left. Ryan followed it. At the far edge of the clearing, near a line of old fence posts, a figure stood, watching them. Ryan's body tensed instantly. The man didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there like he'd been part of the landscape the whole time. Older, late 60s maybe, tall but bent slightly at the shoulders. A thick gray beard covered most of his face. His jacket was worn, the kind of wear that came from years, not style. Ryan felt his pulse pick up. "Didn't think I'd see anyone out here," Ryan called out. The man took a few slow steps forward. His boots crunched on the dry ground. "You're on coal land," the man said. His voice was low, rough, like it had been used more for silence than conversation. Ryan blinked. "You know my name?" The man nodded once. Been a long time since anyone with that name showed up. Ryan studied him carefully. There was something familiar in the way he stood. Not the man himself, but the way he carried himself. Disciplined, measured, like someone who had lived under rules once. "Who are you?" Ryan asked. The man stopped a few feet away. "Name's Caleb Ward." Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly. Ward? You live out here? Close enough?" Bruno stepped slightly in front of Ryan. Not aggressive, but protective. Caleb glanced at the dog, then gave a small nod. "Good animal," he said. "Smart eyes." Ryan rested a hand lightly on Bruno's back. "He's been keeping me out of trouble." Caleb's gaze shifted back to Ryan. "That so?" Ryan shrugged faintly. "Trying." A breeze moved through the clearing, rustling the trees. Caleb turned his head slightly, scanning the edges of the forest, like he was listening for something beyond normal hearing. Then he looked back at Ryan. "You come for the land?" Ryan hesitated. "Yeah." Caleb nodded again. "Or to sell it?" Ryan blinked. "How'd you—" "They've been asking about it for years." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Redstone." Caleb's expression didn't change. Figured as much." Ryan studied him more closely now. "You know them?" Caleb let out a quiet breath through his nose. "Know enough." The way he said it made Ryan uneasy. "What does that mean?" Caleb didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked toward the cabin, then toward the forest beyond it, then back at Ryan. "You shouldn't trust people who want something they can't explain," he said finally. Ryan frowned. "That's not exactly helpful." "It's not supposed to be." Silence settled between them. Bruno shifted again, glancing between Caleb and the tree line. Ryan noticed. "What is it?" he whispered. The dog's ears flicked. Then he turned, slowly, toward the darker part of the forest behind the cabin. Ryan followed his gaze. Nothing. Just trees. But the feeling from before, it was back. Stronger now, and Caleb watched Ryan carefully. "You feel it, don't you?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, "Yeah." Caleb nodded once. "Your grandfather did too." Ryan's head snapped slightly. "You knew him?" "Long time ago." Ryan took a step closer. "Then you know why he left." Caleb's face didn't change. "People leave for all kinds of reasons." "That's not an answer." "No," Caleb agreed. "It's not." Ryan's frustration rose, sharp and sudden. "Then what is? Because from where I'm standing, he just disappeared. Left my family to deal with everything he walked away from." Caleb held his gaze. "He didn't walk away," he said quietly. Ryan froze. The words hit something deep. "What do you mean?" Caleb looked toward the mountains beyond the trees. "Some men don't get to choose how they leave," he said. Ryan's chest tightened. "Oh, that still doesn't explain—" "It will," Caleb interrupted, "if you stay long enough." Silence again. Ryan's thoughts churned. Nothing about this was simple anymore. Not the land. Not his grandfather. Not this man. He looked back at the cabin. "You been inside?" Caleb shook his head. "Not my place." Ryan reached into his pocket, pulling out the small key Elaine had given him. It felt heavier now, more than just metal. Bruno stepped closer, his attention shifting from the forest to the cabin door. Ryan looked down at him. "You want to go in?" The dog didn't move, but his eyes didn't leave the door. Ryan swallowed, then looked back at Caleb. "You coming?" Caleb stepped back slightly. "No." Ryan frowned. "Why not?" Caleb's eyes narrowed just a fraction. "Oh, because some things." belonged to the people they were left for. Ryan didn't like that answer, but he didn't argue. He turned toward the cabin. Each step felt louder than it should. The wood of the porch creaked under his weight as he climbed up. The door stood in front of him. Old, scratched, but intact. Bruno stood beside him now, body tense. Ryan raised the key. For a moment, his hand hesitated. Not out of fear, but something close to it. Then he pushed the key into the lock. It turned. Slowly, with a heavy, final sound. Click. Ryan rested his hand on the door. Behind him, the forest was silent. Caleb didn't move. Bruno didn't blink. Ryan took a breath and pushed the door open. The darkness inside waited, still, unmoving, like it had been waiting for him. The air inside the cabin was colder than outside. It's not the kind of cold that came from weather, but the kind that came from stillness, from a place that hadn't been touched in a long time, and yet didn't feel abandoned. Ryan stepped in slowly. The floor creaked under his boots, each sound echoing just a little too loud in the quiet. Bruno followed, but only a few steps. Then he stopped. Ryan glanced back. "Come on." The dog didn't move. His body was rigid now, ears forward, eyes fixed somewhere past Ryan, deeper into the cabin. Ryan frowned. "What is it?" Bruno let out a low, uneasy sound. Not fear, warning. Ryan turned his attention forward again. The room wasn't what he expected. There was no dust covering everything, no cobwebs stretching across corners, no signs of decay. Instead, it looked maintained. A wooden table stood near the center, its surface clean except for a small oil lamp and a folded cloth. A cast-iron stove sat against the far wall. Shelves lined one side of the cabin, holding jars, sealed, labeled. Ryan stepped closer. He reached out, brushing his fingers lightly across the table. No dust. He looked around slowly, unease settling deeper into his chest. This doesn't make sense. If no one had been here, then who kept it like this? Behind him, Bruno's low growl deepened. Ryan turned. The dog had moved, but not toward him, toward the back of the cabin, toward a narrow doorway that led into darkness. Ryan followed his gaze. The hallway beyond the doorway was dim. The light from the front room barely reached inside, fading into shadow after a few feet. "Bruno," Ryan said quietly. The dog stepped forward, slowly, carefully. Then he stopped again. At this time, he planted his paws firmly on the floor and refused to go further. Ryan felt a tightness in his chest. "All right," he muttered. "We take it slow." He grabbed the oil lamp from the table, checked it. It still had fuel, and struck a match. The flame flickered to life. Soft, unsteady, but enough. Ryan lifted it slightly, casting light into the hallway. The shadows shifted. The air seemed heavier there. He took one step forward, then another. The wood creaked beneath him. Behind him, Bruno didn't follow. Ryan stopped and looked back. The dog stood at the edge of the main room, watching him, tense, unwilling. "Hey," Ryan said softly. "I need you." Bruno didn't move. Ryan swallowed. That wasn't like him. Not ever. The dog had followed him through gunfire, through chaos, through things most people couldn't imagine. And now, he wouldn't take another step. Ryan felt something cold settle in his gut, but he turned back anyway. The hallway led to a single door. Closed. Old. The wood darker than the rest of the cabin, worn in places like it had been opened many times. Ryan reached for the handle, paused, then turned it. It opened without resistance. The room inside was small. A bedroom, a bed neatly made, blanket pulled tight, a chair in the corner, a small dresser against the wall. Ryan stepped in. The air here felt different, quieter, almost preserved. He set the lamp down on the dresser, then froze. There were photographs, pinned carefully to the wall above it. Ryan stepped closer. His breath caught slightly. One of them. It was him, younger, maybe 6 years old, standing beside a tall man with a beard, broad shoulders, strong hands resting lightly on Ryan's small frame. Ryan stared. That's... His voice trailed off. He reached up, fingers hovering just inches from the image. I don't remember this. But something inside him did. A flicker. A warmth. The smell of pine. A laugh. Deep. Steady. Ryan swallowed hard. There were more photos. Him at different ages. 7, 8. Then nothing. A gap. And then only the man. Alone. Older. Tired. Ryan's chest tightened. You didn't leave, he whispered. Not yet. Not back then. Behind him, Bruno let out a sharp bark. Ryan turned instantly. The dog had moved now, but not into the hallway. He was at the door. Scratching. Desperate. Ryan stepped out quickly. Hey, what is it? Bruno backed away, then turned, and heading toward the front of the cabin. Fast. Ryan followed. What? Bruno? The dog reached the doorway, then didn't stop. He went outside. Ryan stepped out after him. The air hit him like a reset. Cool. Sharp. Real. Bruno didn't slow down. He moved across the clearing, straight toward the edge of the trees, toward the rocky slope behind the cabin. Ryan jogged after him. Bruno, slow down! The dog reached the base of a massive rock wall. A jagged opening cut into it. Dark. Deep. The cave. Bruno stopped at the entrance, then immediately began digging at the ground near the edge. Furiously. Dirt flew behind him as his paws worked faster, more urgent than Ryan had ever seen. Hey! Ryan called out. What are you doing? Bruno didn't stop. He barked once, sharp, demanding. Ryan approached cautiously. But the air near the cave was colder. He could feel it, like the mountain itself was breathing out. Bruno kept digging, then suddenly stopped. He stood over the spot. Rigid, focused. Ryan stepped closer. What did you find? Bruno looked at him, then back at the ground, then let out a low, insistent growl. Ryan knelt slowly. He brushed away some of the loose dirt. There was something there. Not rock, not soil, wood, old, buried just beneath the surface. Ryan's pulse quickened. He cleared more of it away. It was a box, small, hidden, deliberately. Ryan sat back slightly, staring at it. Okay. His voice was barely above a whisper. Bruno didn't relax. If anything, he grew more tense. His eyes shifted toward the cave entrance, then back to Ryan, as if warning him, as if telling him, this isn't everything. But Ryan followed his gaze. The darkness inside the cave stretched inward, swallowing the light, endless, silent, waiting. Ryan exhaled slowly. Yeah, he murmured. I see it. Bruno didn't move. He stood between Ryan and the cave, refusing to let him go any closer. Not yet. Ryan stayed still. The wind brushed softly against the mountainside, carrying with it a faint scent, earth, stone, and something else, something old, Bruno didn't move. He stood firm, his body angled just enough to block the cave entrance, his eyes locked on Ryan as if waiting for him to understand. "All right," Ryan said quietly, raising his hands slightly. "I hear you." The dog didn't relax, but he stopped growling. Ryan looked down at the partially uncovered box. Carefully, he brushed away more dirt, revealing its full shape. But it was a metal container, edges rusted but intact, sealed tight, like it had been meant to survive years underground. Ryan hesitated, then lifted it. It was heavier than it looked. He stood slowly, glancing once more toward the cave. The darkness didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't give anything away. But the feeling lingered, waiting. Ryan turned away. "Not today," he murmured. Bruno's posture eased, just a little. Together they walked back toward the cabin. The door creaked as Ryan pushed it open again, stepping into the quiet interior that now felt less abandoned, and more like it had been left on purpose. He set the box on the table. For a moment, he just stood there, staring at it. Then he reached for the latch. It resisted. Rust had locked it tight. Ryan grabbed a small tool from his bag, went wedging it carefully under the edge. A slow, steady pressure. Then, a sharp crack. The latch gave. Ryan pulled the lid open. Inside, letters. Dozens of them, carefully stacked, bound together with worn twine. And beneath them, a small wooden object. Ryan reached in, lifting the letters first. The paper was thick, yellowed with age but preserved. Each envelope had been sealed, but none were addressed. Just one name written across the top of the first letter. Ryan. His breath caught. These were... for me? He sat down slowly. Bruno lay beside the table, watching quietly now, but still alert, his eyes flicking occasionally toward the door, toward the outside, toward the cave. Ryan untied the twine. His hands were steady, but something inside him wasn't. He opened the first letter. The handwriting was rough, uneven, but deliberate. Ryan read silently at first, then his lips moved. "I don't know if you'll ever read this." His voice was low, careful. "But if you do, then it means I failed to explain things the right way while I still could." Ryan's throat tightened. He kept reading. "I know what they're going to tell you about me. That I left. That I chose to disappear. And maybe it will look that way." Ryan's eyes flicked slightly. The room felt smaller, closer. "But I need you to understand something, Ryan. I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because staying would have destroyed everything." Ryan swallowed. His grip on the paper tightened. "They came to me years ago. Not as enemies. Not at first. They offered work. Quiet work. The kind that pays well enough to make a man ignore questions." Ryan's chest rose slowly. But nothing that pays that well comes without a cost." The fire in the stove, long cold, seemed almost alive in Ryan's memory, like it had once burned while these words were written. "I saw things I wasn't supposed to see, heard things I wasn't meant to understand, and by the time I realized what I had stepped into, it was too late to walk away clean." Ryan's breathing slowed, focused, locked onto every word. "They told me to keep quiet, to keep working. And I did, for a while. Because I thought I could protect the family by staying close, by knowing what they were doing." His jaw tightened. "But then I realized something worse. The closer I stayed, the more danger I brought with me." Ryan lowered the letter slightly. The room blurred for a moment. Then he blinked, focused again. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, he read quietly. I left because I knew they were watching, and if they ever thought you mattered to me, they would use you. The silence in the cabin deepened. Bruno shifted slightly, pressing closer to Ryan's leg. Ryan didn't move. I chose to disappear so they would forget about you, so they would stop looking in your direction. Ryan's voice faltered. I thought that was the only way to keep you safe. The paper trembled in his hands. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to understand. But if you're reading this, then maybe I was right about one thing. Ryan paused, his eyes fixed on the last line. You're stronger than I ever was. The words hung in the air, heavy. Ryan lowered the letter slowly. He stared at it, then at the rest of the stack. Oh, there's more, he whispered. Bruno lifted his head. Ryan reached back into the box. Beneath the letters, he picked up the small wooden object. It was smooth, worn from use. A simple carving. A dog. Ryan froze. His fingers traced its edges. I remember this. The memory came suddenly. Clear. A younger version of himself sitting on a wooden floor. A man's large hands guiding his smaller ones as they carved into a block of wood. Not too fast, the voice said. Steady, warm. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. I thought I made this, he whispered. But now, he wasn't so sure. Bruno let out a soft sound. Ryan looked down at him. The dog's eyes were calm now, grounded, like he knew something had changed. Ryan exhaled slowly. He didn't leave, he said. Not to Bruno, not really, to himself. He was trying to protect us. The weight of that realization settled deep. Years of anger, of confusion, of silence, all shifting, all cracking. Ryan leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in a long time, something inside him didn't feel broken. It felt unfinished. Like there was more. Like this wasn't the end of the story, just the part he had never been told. Bruno stood, suddenly alert again. Ryan sat up. What is it? The dog turned toward the door, then toward the back of the cabin, then toward the cave. A low growl returned. Not loud, but certain. Ryan followed his gaze. The feeling was back. Stronger. Closer. He looked down at the letters in his hand, then toward the darkness outside. You knew this was here, he murmured. Not as a question, as a realization. As Ryan stood slowly. The chair scraped softly against the floor. Bruno moved ahead of him again, toward the door, toward the place he had refused to let Ryan go before. Ryan picked up the lamp, his grip steady now, different. He glanced once more at the carving in his hand, then set it carefully back inside the box. We're not done, he said quietly. Bruno didn't hesitate this time. He stepped outside, and for the first time, he didn't try to stop Ryan from following, because whatever was waiting in that cave, Ryan was ready to face it. The air shifted the moment they stepped closer. Cooler, heavier, like the mountain was exhaling something it had held onto for years. Ryan raised the oil lamp, its soft glow barely pushing back the darkness at the cave's mouth. The rock walls loomed around them, jagged and uneven, swallowing the light just a few feet in. Bruno moved first. Not fast, not reckless. Measured. Each step placed carefully, his body low, ears forward, every instinct tuned to something deeper than sight. Ryan followed. The ground beneath his boots was uneven, packed dirt mixed with stone. The deeper they went, the more the outside world faded away. No wind, no birds, just the quiet drip of water somewhere far inside. Ryan's breathing sounded too loud, too sharp. He tried to slow it, tried to stay present. But the darkness, it pressed in. A flicker in the corner of his vision. Sand. Heat. The sharp echo of something breaking. Ryan stopped. His chest tightened. "Not now," he whispered. Bruno turned immediately. The dog stepped back, placing himself directly in front of Ryan, blocking his path, grounding him, and Ryan squeezed his eyes shut for a second, then opened them again. The cave returned. Cold stone. Shadows. Reality. He nodded once. "I'm good." Bruno held his gaze a moment longer, then turned and continued. The tunnel narrowed slightly, then opened into a wider chamber. Ryan stepped into it and froze. The walls here were different. Smoother, not natural. Too straight, too clean. Someone had worked this space a long time ago. Ryan lifted the lamp higher. The light revealed something carved into the rock wall. Symbols. No, not symbols. Marks. Measurements. Coordinates. Ryan stepped closer, brushing his fingers lightly over them. These aren't random. His mind started piecing it together. Paths. Routes. Points of reference. This wasn't just a cave. It was a map. Bruno let out a low sound. Ryan turned. The dog stood near the far end of the chamber, his nose pressed close to the ground, then lifting, then shifting again. Tracking. Ryan followed him. The chamber sloped downward, leading into a narrower passage. The air grew colder, thinner. Ryan's grip tightened on the lamp. Easy. The passage twisted once, then again. Then it stopped. A wall. Solid rock. Ryan frowned. That's it? Bruno didn't agree. The dog stepped forward, sniffing along the base of the wall, then pawed at it. Once, twice, then harder. Ryan crouched beside him. "What are you seeing?" He held the lamp closer. The rock surface wasn't uniform. There was a seam, barely visible, a line where stone met something else. Ryan ran his fingers along it. Wood, hidden behind the rock. His pulse picked up. Okay. He searched the wall, scanning every inch. Then he saw it. A small indentation. Worn. Used. Ryan pressed it. Nothing. He tried again, harder. A low grinding sound echoed through the passage. Stone shifted. Dust fell. And slowly, the wall moved, revealing a narrow opening. Dark. Silent. Ryan's breath caught. "You've got to be kidding me." Bruno stepped forward without hesitation. Ryan followed. The space beyond was different, completely. The air felt sealed, still, untouched. Ryan lifted the lamp higher, and the light revealed it. A room. Not carved, built. Wooden beams reinforced the ceiling. Shelves lined the walls stacked with metal boxes, old files, sealed containers. A table stood in the center. Everything organized, everything intentional. Ryan stepped in slowly. This isn't just a hideout. It was something more. Something planned. He approached the nearest shelf, picked up one of the files, opened it. His eyes moved across the page, then stopped. Names, dates, locations, transactions. Ryan's jaw tightened. These are records. Not just any records. Detailed, precise, dangerous. Bruno moved deeper into the room, sniffing, scanning. Ryan turned another page. Photos. Grainy. Distant. But clear enough. Men shaking hands. Men exchanging cases. Men who didn't look like they wanted to be photographed. Ryan felt his chest tighten again. But this time, not from memory. From understanding. This is everything. Everything his grandfather had seen. Everything he had risked his life to keep hidden. Proof of something bigger than one man. Ryan set the file down slowly. His hand trembled slightly. This could take down... He didn't finish the sentence. Because he didn't need to. He already knew. A faint sound echoed from somewhere behind them. Ryan froze. Bruno's head snapped toward the entrance. Silence. Then, a distant crunch. Footsteps. Ryan's pulse spiked. They followed us. Bruno moved instantly, placing himself between Ryan and the passage. Low. Ready. Ryan grabbed the nearest box, scanning quickly. Documents, drives, sealed envelopes. Too much to carry. Too important to leave. He looked around. There has to be another way out, Bruno growled softly. The sound was different now. Not warning. Preparation. Ryan turned back toward the entrance. The light from the tunnel flickered faintly. Shadows moved. Someone was coming. Ryan's mind raced. Fight? Run? Hide? His breathing quickened, then stopped. He looked at Bruno. The dog's stance. Steady. Focused. Unshaken. Ryan exhaled slowly. No, he whispered. We're not running. The words felt different, stronger. For the first time, he wasn't reacting. He was choosing. Ryan reached for another file, stuffing it into his bag. Then another. Bruno didn't move. Didn't break his position. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. Ryan stood. His fear was still there. But it wasn't in control anymore. Because now he understood something his grandfather had known all along. Some things were worth standing for. Even if it meant everything changed after. Bruno's growl deepened. Ryan stepped beside him. The light from the passage stretched longer, closer. And Ryan didn't step back. Not this time. While the footsteps echoed through the narrow passage. Slow, deliberate, not rushed. Whoever was coming knew exactly where they were going. Bruno's growl deepened, low and steady, vibrating through his chest. His body lowered, weight shifting forward, ready. Ryan's heart pounded, but his hands didn't shake, not like before. He reached for the lamp, turning it slightly to dim the light, casting longer shadows across the hidden room. Stay, he whispered. Bruno didn't move. Didn't need to. The sound grew louder, closer. Then, it stopped. Just outside the hidden doorway. Silence fell like a weight. Ryan held his breath. The cave seemed to close in around him, the darkness pressing against his senses. A faint beam of light cut through the passage. Flashlight. It swept slowly across the stone wall, paused, then shifted. Searching. Ryan's chest tightened. For a split second. The world tilted. The beam of light wasn't in a cave anymore. It was somewhere else. Hot. Blinding. Dust rising in the air. Voices shouting. Ryan's vision blurred. The sound of the cave twisted into something sharper. Closer. Move! Move! His breath caught. His hands clenched. Not here. Not now. The past surged forward like a wave. He couldn't see the cave anymore. Only shadows moving too fast. Only noise too loud to think through. His body tensed, ready to react. Bruno slammed into him, hard. Ryan stumbled back a step, the impact snapping something loose in his mind. The cave rushed back. Cold air. Stone. Silence. Bruno stood in front of him again, blocking his view of the passage, grounding him, holding him in place. Ryan gasped for air. "Oh, I'm here," he whispered. "I'm here." Bruno didn't move, didn't blink. Ryan forced himself to breathe slower. In, out, again. The beam of light flickered outside the wall, still searching. Ryan wiped a hand across his face. "Good boy," he murmured. Bruno's ears flicked, but he didn't break focus. Ryan's mind cleared. Not completely, but enough. Enough to think. He glanced around the hidden room. There had to be something. Another exit. Another way. His eyes landed on the far wall, behind the shelves. Something felt off. He moved quickly, but quietly, sliding past Bruno. The dog didn't protest. He stayed where he was, guarding. Ryan reached the shelves, ran his hand along the wood. Solid. Then, a slight shift. He pushed. The shelf moved, barely, but enough. Ryan's pulse jumped. "Oh, come on." He pressed harder. The wood groaned softly, then slid aside, revealing a narrow gap. Dark. Cold air drifted through it. A second tunnel. Ryan exhaled slowly. Of course. His grandfather had planned this. Every step. Every detail. He turned back toward Bruno. The dog glanced at him, then back at the entrance. The footsteps outside shifted again. Closer now. They were about to find the mechanism. Ryan crouched slightly. "Bruno," he whispered. The dog's eyes snapped back to him. Ryan pointed toward the hidden passage. "We move." Bruno didn't hesitate. He backed up slowly, never turning his back to the entrance, his body still angled toward the threat. Ryan grabbed 2 more files, stuffing them into his bag. Then one last look at the room. At the evidence. At the truth his grandfather had hidden. "We'll come back," he said quietly. Then he slipped into the narrow tunnel. Bruno followed. The passage was tight. Barely enough space to move. The air colder, heavier. Ryan moved carefully, one hand on the wall, the other holding the lamp close to his chest. Behind them, a sound. Stone shifting. The hidden door. Found. Ryan didn't look back. He kept moving. The tunnel sloped upward this time, twisting, turning. Each step felt longer than the last. The air grew thinner, his breath sharper. Behind him, Bruno moved silently, his presence the only thing keeping Ryan steady. Then, the tunnel opened. Ryan stepped out into the night. Cold air hit his face. Fresh, real. He sucked in a breath. They were on the other side of the ridge, hidden by rock and trees. The cave entrance they had used was nowhere in sight, and Ryan turned back slightly. The mountain loomed behind them, silent, unchanged. But everything inside him had shifted. Bruno stepped forward, then stopped. Ryan followed his gaze. Across the ridge, lights. Faint. Moving. Flashlights. They were still searching. Still coming. Ryan tightened the strap on his bag. His chest rose and fell slowly. No panic. Not anymore. Just focus. "They're not going to stop," he said. Bruno looked up at him. Ryan nodded once. "Neither are we." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine through the trees. Ryan adjusted his stance. For the first time, he wasn't running from the past. He was walking straight into whatever came next. And this time, he wasn't alone. The night air carried a sharp chill across the ridge, cutting through Ryan's jacket as he stood still, watching the distant lights move below. They were searching, systematic, patient, not lost. "They know exactly where to look," Ryan said under his breath. Bruno stood beside him, silent, eyes tracking every flicker of movement across the dark slope. Ryan exhaled slowly, forcing his mind to stay clear. Panic would get him killed. Thinking would keep him alive. He glanced behind him at the narrow exit they had just come through. Hidden, barely visible. His grandfather had designed this place for a reason. Not just to hide, to escape, to survive. Ryan tightened his grip on the strap of his bag. "We don't go back down there," he said quietly. "Not tonight." Bruno didn't argue. The dog shifted slightly, turning his body toward the tree line behind them. Ryan followed his lead. "Oh, yeah, higher ground." They moved along the ridge, keeping low, using the uneven rock and trees as cover. The ground was rough, scattered with loose stones and roots that caught at Ryan's boots, but he didn't slow. Behind them, the lights spread out. Wider, closer. They were adjusting, anticipating. Ryan's jaw tightened. "They're not guessing," he whispered. "They know something." Bruno paused suddenly. Ryan stopped instantly. "What is it?" The dog's ears stood straight, head tilted slightly, catching something Ryan couldn't hear. Then he turned, away from the ridge, toward a narrow path that cut through the trees. Ryan hesitated. That wasn't the way back. It led deeper, further from anything familiar. Bruno took a few steps forward, then stopped, waiting. Ryan stared at him. "You're sure?" Bruno didn't move, but didn't blink. Ryan let out a slow breath. "All right." He followed. The path was faint, barely more than a break in the undergrowth, like it hadn't been used in years. Or maybe only used by someone who knew exactly where it led. The trees closed in around them, branches blocking out the moonlight. The world narrowed to shadows and the soft crunch of footsteps. Ryan's breathing steadied, focused, each step deliberate. Bruno moved ahead, guiding, not guessing, knowing. After several minutes, the path curved sharply, then opened. Ryan stepped into another clearing and froze. There was a structure, not like the cabin, not worn, not exposed, hidden, built into the side of the mountain itself. A reinforced door, metal, weathered but intact, half buried behind a curtain of rock and moss. Ryan's pulse spiked. "What is this?" Bruno approached slowly. No growl, no hesitation, just focus. Ryan stepped closer. The door was old but not abandoned. There were marks around the edges, faint scratches, subtle signs of use. Recent. Ryan's chest tightened. "Someone's been here." Bruno stopped directly in front of the door, then looked back at Ryan. Ryan swallowed. "You led me here." He stepped forward, ran his hand along the metal surface. Cold, solid. There was a keypad beside it, dark, inactive. Ryan frowned. No power. He checked the edges. Nothing obvious. Then his hand brushed against something lower down, a small indentation, hidden beneath a thin layer of dirt. Ryan knelt, cleared it away. A keyhole, old-fashioned, manual. Ryan's breath slowed. His hand moved to his pocket, the small key Elaine had given him, for the cabin. Ryan held it up. It couldn't be that simple, but something told him it wasn't simple. It was planned. He inserted the key, turned it. For a moment, nothing. Then, a deep, heavy sound echoed through the door, a lock releasing. Ryan stepped back slightly as the door shifted. Slowly, grinding open just enough to reveal darkness beyond. Cold air poured out. Stale. Sealed. Untouched for years. Ryan raised the lamp. The light spilled inside, revealing Concrete walls. Reinforced. A hallway stretching inward. Not a cave. Not natural. Built. Deliberately. Carefully. Ryan's breath caught. This is something else. Bruno stepped forward. Crossed the threshold. Without hesitation. Ryan followed. The door creaked softly behind them, but didn't close. Inside, the air was thick. Still, the kind of silence that pressed against your ears. Ryan lifted the lamp higher. The hallway opened into a larger room, and what he saw stopped him cold. Tables, rows of them, covered in documents, maps, equipment, metal cases stacked along the walls. A generator in the corner, silent but intact. This wasn't just a hiding place. It was an operation. Ryan stepped closer to one of the tables, spread out across it. More files, more records. But these were different, more detailed, more recent. He flipped one open. His eyes scanned quickly, then stopped. Dates, names, transactions, connected, organized. This wasn't just evidence, it was a system. Ryan's chest tightened. He was building something, not just collecting, preparing. Bruno moved deeper into the room, then stopped. His body stiffened. But Ryan turned. "What is it?" The dog stared toward a far corner. Ryan followed his gaze. There. Another door. Smaller. Reinforced. Ryan stepped toward it slowly. His hand reached out. Paused. Then pushed. The door opened. Inside. A safe. Large. Heavy. And already unlocked. Ryan's pulse pounded in his ears. He opened it. Inside. Stacks of documents. Hard drives. And one single folder. Different from the rest. Marked. Ryan. His breath caught. No way. He pulled it out. Opened it. Inside. A letter. Different handwriting. More urgent. Ryan began to read. "If you've made it this far, then they're already close." Ryan's heart dropped. "I didn't have time to finish everything, but this room, this is the key." His eyes moved faster. "They think this land is just rock. But what's buried here, what I've hidden, it can destroy them." Ryan swallowed hard. "They will come for it. For you." The words felt heavier now, more real. Because they already had. Ryan looked up slowly. The silence in the bunker shifted. Not empty anymore. Charged. Bruno let out a low growl. Ryan turned toward the entrance. A faint sound echoed from the hallway behind them. Footsteps. Closer. Much closer. Ryan's grip tightened on the folder. "They found it." Bruno moved in front of him again. "Ready." Ryan exhaled slowly. No fear. Not this time. Only clarity. Because now he understood. This wasn't about land. It wasn't about money. It was about truth. And they were willing to kill for it. Ryan straightened, his voice steady. "Then we don't let them take it." Bruno didn't move. Didn't need to. The footsteps stopped just outside the room. Silence. Then, a shadow crossed the doorway. Ryan didn't step back. Not anymore. The shadow in the doorway didn't move at first. It just stood there. Watching. Measuring. Then a voice followed. Calm. Controlled. "You found more than I expected." Ryan's grip tightened around the folder. Bruno's growl deepened, low and steady, the sound echoing softly off the concrete walls. A man stepped into the light. Well-dressed, even out here. Dark coat, clean boots. The kind of presence that didn't belong in the wilderness, but owned it anyway. Behind him, two more figures lingered in the shadows of the hallway. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Victor Kane. The man smiled faintly. I was wondering how long it would take you to connect the name. Ryan didn't answer. Didn't need to, as everything in this room already said enough. Victor glanced around the bunker, taking in the tables, the files, the years of hidden truth. A shame, he said quietly. All that work your grandfather put in, just to hand it over. Ryan stepped forward half a step. Not happening. Victor's smile didn't change. It already is. He nodded slightly. One of the men behind him shifted forward. Bruno reacted instantly. A sharp bark, a warning. The man stopped. Victor raised a hand slightly, holding his people back. No sudden moves, he said calmly. We're all reasonable men here. Ryan's jaw tightened. Then you should know I'm not giving you anything. Victor studied him. Longer this time. Then his expression softened, almost sympathetic. You don't understand what you're holding, he said. Well, this isn't something you walk away from. It's bigger than you, bigger than your situation. Ryan didn't blink. I know exactly what it is. Victor tilted his head slightly. Do you? Ryan's voice stayed steady. It's the reason my grandfather disappeared. The reason you've been chasing this land for years. The reason you're standing here instead of sending someone else. A flicker. Small, but real. Victor's smile thinned. You're smarter than I expected. Ryan didn't move. And you're running out of time. Silence filled the room. Heavy, tight. Bruno shifted his stance, inching closer to Ryan, placing himself between him and the men. Victor noticed. Loyal dog, he said. Ryan's eyes didn't leave his. He's not the only one. Victor let out a quiet breath. Last chance, he said. Give me the folder. Walk away. You'll never hear from me again. Ryan didn't even look down at it. No. The word landed hard. Final. Victor's expression changed. Not anger. Something colder. Disappointment. He nodded once. Then we're done here. He stepped back, and everything shifted. The men moved. Fast. Not reckless. Trained. Bruno lunged forward with a bark that cut through the room like a gunshot. Ryan reacted instantly, stepping back, grabbing the nearest metal case and throwing it across the floor. It slammed hard, scattering papers, breaking the line of sight. Move! Ryan shouted. Bruno didn't hesitate. He turned, moving with Ryan as they pushed through the side of the room toward the hallway. Footsteps behind them. Shouts. Controlled, but urgent now. Ryan didn't look back. He ran. The narrow corridor forced them into single file. Bruno ahead, Ryan behind. The lamp's light bounced wildly against the walls. Left! Ryan called instinctively. Bruno turned before he finished the word. The memory of the layout. Fresh, sharp, guiding them. Behind them. A loud crack. Then another. Not gunfire. Something heavier. Metal hitting metal. Breaking. They were forcing their way through. Ryan's breath came fast now, but his mind stayed clear. Focused. The tunnel split. He hesitated for half a second. Bruno didn't. He took the right path. Ryan followed. Trust. Always trust him. The passage sloped upward again, toward the exit, toward the open air. Ryan pushed harder, faster. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder, closer. Then, light. The night sky opened above them as they burst out of the hidden exit. Cold air hit Ryan's lungs like fire. "Oh, go!" he shouted. Bruno didn't slow. They ran along the ridge, the uneven ground threatening to trip them at every step. Ryan glanced back once. Flashlights burst from the opening behind them. They were out. They were chasing. Ryan turned forward again. The cabin. That was the only place he knew. The only place with anything resembling cover. They reached the clearing just as the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon. The cabin stood silent, still, like it had been when they first arrived. Ryan didn't slow. He ran straight for it. "Inside!" Bruno reached the door first. Ryan shoved it open. They rushed in. Ryan slammed the door bomb behind them, pushing a heavy table against it. His chest heaved. His hands finally trembled. Not from fear. From adrenaline. From knowing this wasn't over, not even close. While Bruno moved through the cabin quickly, checking every corner, every shadow, then stopped. He turned toward Ryan. Ryan followed his gaze. Smoke. Faint at first, then stronger. Ryan's eyes widened. No, outside. A sound. The sharp crack of something catching, then another. Ryan rushed to the window. Flames, small but spreading. They're burning it. The realization hit hard, fast. This wasn't about chasing anymore. It was about erasing. Everything. Ryan turned back. Bruno was already moving. Toward the back of the cabin. Toward the second exit. "Go!" Ryan shouted. The heat rose quickly now, the air thickening with smoke. Wood creaked. Fire climbed. Ryan grabbed the bag, slinging it over his shoulder. Bruno reached the back door, then stopped, turned. Ryan followed his gaze. A beam above them shifted, and cracked, falling. "Bruno, move!" But the dog didn't move. He lunged, not away, toward Ryan. He slammed into him, hard. Ryan stumbled back just as the beam crashed down where he had been standing. The impact shook the cabin. Dust and sparks filled the air. Ryan hit the floor, coughing. Bruno stood over him, protective, unmoving. For a second, everything slowed. Ryan looked up at him. You saved me." Bruno didn't respond. Didn't need to. Ryan pushed himself up. "Come on!" This time, Bruno moved. They forced their way out through the back, the flames already consuming the structure behind them. The cabin groaned, collapsed inward as they cleared the tree line. Ryan turned just once, watched it burn. Everything his grandfather had left behind. Gone. Except what he carried. Except what they had found. While Ryan exhaled slowly. Smoke rising behind him. Fire reflecting in his eyes. Bruno stood beside him. Silent. Loyal. Alive. Ryan looked down at him. "Not over," he said quietly. Bruno's ears flicked. Ryan turned toward the mountains, toward the truth still waiting. And this time, he didn't feel hunted. He felt ready. Because now, they had taken everything from him, and he had nothing left to lose. The fire behind them crackled through the trees, a dull orange glow flickering against the early morning sky. Smoke curled upward, slow and heavy, like a signal that refused to be ignored. Ryan didn't look back again. There was nothing left there to save. Only ashes. Bruno walked close at his side, but something in his gait had changed. Slower, slightly uneven. Ryan noticed immediately. "Hey, let me see." He knelt beside the dog, his hands gentle but quick. Bruno didn't resist, but his ears flicked back slightly. Ryan lifted his front leg. There it was. A deep scrape along the lower part of the leg, just above the paw. Not clean, not small. The kind of injury that came from impact, from debris, from pulling someone out of danger. Ryan's jaw tightened. "You took that hit for me." Bruno held his gaze, calm, steady, like it didn't matter. Ryan exhaled slowly, pulling a strip of cloth from his bag. He wrapped it carefully around the wound, securing it tight enough to hold, but not to hurt. "I've got you," he said quietly. Bruno didn't pull away. Ryan rested his forehead briefly against the dog's. Always did. For a moment, the world slowed. No fire, no footsteps, no men hunting them, just the two of them. Then, a distant engine. Ryan's head snapped up. Bruno's ears followed instantly. "They're not done." The sound grew louder. Vehicles. More than one. Ryan stood quickly, scanning the terrain. Open ground wouldn't help. Running blindly wouldn't work. They needed something else. Someone else. Ryan's mind moved fast. Caleb. The old man. He knew this land, knew what was happening, at least part of it. Ryan looked toward the direction of the ridge. "Can you make it?" he asked softly. Bruno shifted his weight, then stood firm. "Ready." Ryan nodded once. "Good." They moved. Not fast, not reckless, purposeful. The path back to the clearing wasn't clear anymore. Smoke drifted through the trees, blurring the edges of everything, turning familiar ground into something uncertain. While Ryan relied on instinct, and on Bruno. The dog led when he could, adjusted when he needed to. Even injured, he didn't fall behind. After nearly 20 minutes, the trees began to thin. The clearing came into view. Caleb's place. Small, hidden, unchanged. Ryan approached cautiously. "Caleb?" No answer. Bruno growled softly. Ryan stepped closer. The door creaked open. Inside, empty. Ryan's chest tightened. "Come on." Then, a sound behind him. Ryan turned sharply. Caleb stood at the edge of the clearing, rifle in hand, not raised, but ready. "You're late," the old man said. Ryan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "They burned the cabin." Caleb nodded once. "I saw the smoke." His eyes shifted to Bruno, then narrowed slightly. "He's hurt." Ryan glanced down. "He saved me." Caleb stepped forward slowly. "Of course he did." There was no surprise in his voice, just quiet certainty. Ryan met his gaze. "They're coming. More than before. They found everything." Caleb studied him. "Did you?" Ryan pulled the folder from his bag, held it up. "This is enough to take them down." Caleb didn't reach for it, didn't even look at it. He looked at Ryan. "You sure about that?" Ryan didn't hesitate. "Yes." Silence stretched between them, the kind that weighed more than words. Then Caleb nodded. "All right." He turned, motioning toward the cabin. "Inside." Ryan followed. Bruno limped slightly now, but kept pace. Inside, Caleb moved quickly, pulling open a drawer, grabbing a small radio. "No signal out here," Ryan said. "Not for phones," Caleb replied, and he adjusted something on the device. A faint static filled the room, then a voice. Distant. Crackling. Ryan's eyes widened slightly. "You've been in contact this whole time?" Caleb didn't look at him. "I've been waiting." Ryan stepped closer. "For what?" Caleb finally turned. "For someone who was ready to stop running." Ryan didn't respond. Didn't need to. Caleb nodded once. "Looks like that's you." He spoke into the radio, voice steady. I have something. Coordinates incoming. Ryan's pulse picked up. This is it. Caleb glanced at him. Once you send that, there's no going back. Ryan thought about it. About everything. The past. The cabin. His grandfather. Bruno. He nodded. I'm not going back. Caleb gave a small, approving nod. Good. Outside. Engines. Closer now. Ryan turned toward the window. Oh, they're here. Caleb didn't rush, didn't panic. He simply reached for his rifle. Then we don't let them take it. Ryan stood beside him. Bruno moved between them. 3 figures, different lives, same moment. Ryan's voice was calm. Send it. Caleb pressed the transmission. The static shifted. Coordinates sent. Truth released. Ryan exhaled slowly. It was done. Outside, doors slammed. Voices echoed. Closer. Ryan didn't step back. Not this time. Because now, it wasn't just about surviving. It was about ending it. For good. The moment the transmission went through, something shifted. Not outside. Inside. Ryan felt it in his chest first. A strange quiet settling in, like a storm that had finally spent itself. Outside, engines idled, doors slammed, boots hit dirt, voices called out. But none of it reached him the same way anymore. Caleb stood by the window, unmoving, watching the men spread out across the clearing. They're early, he muttered. Ryan stepped beside him. How long? Caleb didn't answer right away. He listened, counted, measured. Not long enough for them, he said finally. Ryan nodded once. Bruno stood close, his injured leg held carefully, but his posture unchanged, alert, steady, ready. Ryan rested a hand on his back. You did good, he whispered. Bruno's ears flicked. Outside, a voice cut through the air. Ryan Cole! Victor Kane. Calm, controlled, like he was still in charge. Ryan didn't move. Step outside, Victor continued. This doesn't have to go any further. Ryan let out a slow breath. That's the problem, he said quietly. It already has. Caleb glanced at him. You want to answer that? Ryan shook his head. No. Silence stretched. Then Victor's voice came again. You think sending those coordinates changes anything? Ryan's jaw tightened. It changes everything. A pause, then. You're too late. Ryan didn't react. Didn't need to. Because deep down, he knew that wasn't true. The sound came first. Distant. Low. Then growing. Helicopters. Ryan's eyes lifted slightly. Caleb's expression didn't change, but something in his posture did. Right on time, he said. Outside, the men shifted. Voices sharpened. Uncertainty crept in. Victor stepped into view through the window, his calm finally cracking just enough to show something underneath. Calculation. Adjustment. Too late. The helicopters came into full view above the trees, their blades cutting through the morning air and sending wind and dust across the clearing. Ryan exhaled. It was over. Not clean, not simple, but over. Outside, agents moved in fast. Clear, controlled. The kind of movement that didn't hesitate. Victor didn't run. He stood still, watching it happen. Then slowly, he raised his hands. Ryan didn't move from the window. Didn't say anything. He just watched. Watched the men who had chased him lose. Watched the weight of everything finally shift. Bruno stepped closer, pressing lightly against his leg. Ryan looked down at him. It's done, he said. The dog didn't respond, but he stayed, and that was enough. Hours later, the clearing was quiet again. Different. Clean. The smoke had faded. The noise had gone. Only the mountains remained. Ryan stood near the edge of the ridge, looking out across the land. And it didn't feel the same anymore. Not empty. Not forgotten. Something had been restored. Not the cabin. Not the past. But the truth. Behind him, Caleb approached slowly. "They're going to want statements," he said. Ryan nodded. "I'll give them." Caleb studied him for a moment. "You staying?" Ryan looked out at the land again. The cave, the ridge, the place his grandfather had protected. Alone. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think I am." Caleb gave a small nod. "Good." He turned to leave, then paused. "Your grandfather. He'd be glad you saw it through." Ryan didn't answer right away. He just watched the horizon. Then, softly, "I wish I had known." Caleb didn't reply. He didn't need to. Some things didn't need words. The days that followed moved slower, simpler. The land stayed quiet, untouched. Ryan worked. Not like before. Not to survive, but to rebuild. He cleared what was left of the cabin, reinforced what could be saved, marked paths, opened space. Bruno stayed close, healing, his leg improving day by day. But never once did he wander far. Not from Ryan, not from the place they had claimed. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, Ryan stood in front of a small wooden post he had placed near the edge of the clearing. A photograph rested against it. Old, faded, but clear. A man. Strong. Steady. The man Ryan had misunderstood for most of his life. Ryan stood there quietly. Bruno sat beside him. Ryan let out a slow breath. "You didn't leave," he said. His voice was calm, certain. "You stayed, just in a different way." The wind moved gently through the trees, was carrying the scent of pine, of earth, of something that felt whole. Ryan looked down at Bruno. The dog met his gaze. Still there. Still loyal. Still the reason he had made it this far. Ryan smiled faintly. "Guess we both had something to learn." Bruno's tail moved once. Slow. Content. Ryan looked back out across the land, not at what had been, but at what could be. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was carrying the past. He felt like he had finally set it down. And in its place, there was something stronger, something steady, something worth staying for. Ryan rested his hand gently on Bruno's head. "Let's build something better," he said. The mountains didn't answer, but they didn't need to, because this time, Ryan wasn't alone, and he wasn't lost. Not anymore. But if this story meant something to you, I want you to do something simple. Just comment 1 if you believe loyalty like Bruno's still exists in this world, or comment 0 if you think stories like this are too rare to be real anymore. No long words needed, just a single number. And if you've ever gone through a hard time, if you've ever felt alone like Ryan did, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe, because the next story might be even deeper, even more powerful, and you won't want to miss what comes next.